Welcome everyone to another episode of my weird little podcast. Today's episode is especially weird, and I know I always say that. Do I always say that? I feel like I always say
Kind
that.
of, yeah, that's true.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It just gets weirder and weirder. Anyways, today we have Patrick and myself. As
Hello.
usual, I'm always here. Always here. But today's
You're the
episode,
my.
I have to think. What's that?
I said, yeah, I guess you're the my in the My Weird Little Podcast.
It is but it is a universal my. Sometimes it's
Oh,
not
okay.
me doing the story. It's yeah. Today's episode for you to remember when you edit this is going to be called the one where shit falls from the sky. I
Okay. All right. The
don't
one
know if
where
you can
shit falls from-
curse.
The
The one
one
where
where
the one where
I can
stuff falls from the sky.
I'll just put like SH *T or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Um, not literally, not saying that that's never happened in nature. Actually, it could be. I forgot part of the story that is part of it. Anyways, never mind. We'll get into it in a little bit. I do have to thank my bestie Mitchell for suggesting part of this episode is inspired by his suggestion. And exciting news, he's going to be on the episode or on the podcast a couple weeks from now. He's bringing another surprising story. And, I absolutely love when he's on because I think we are just very like-minded. Just found out he loves Touched by an Angel just as much as I love Touched by an Angel. We
All
are
right,
both,
now that's weird.
yeah,
That's weird
we are
now.
both fans of Dr. Quinn. Although he is team Colleen number 2 and I'm team Colleen number 1. And, I will fight him. I don't plan on fighting him, but I don't want to sometimes I get really intense about, these things. So I'm going to try to keep that to myself this time. Colleen number 1 is 100% the better actress. She like her.
For those of you listening that don't know, there was a first Colleen, and then she was replaced with another actress later on in the series.
Yeah, but Colleen number 1 is the better actress. Mitchell.
I think you're right.
So, yeah. And just for clarification, I don't watch Touched by an Angel for intense religious, views. Everyone is open to their own, taste in religion. I think Touched by an Angel is probably one of the worst representations of religion, just because Monica has the worst advice I've ever heard. Monica and Gloria, if Monica or Gloria were my angels, I would be in trouble. Because Monica actually causes problems sometimes, and Gloria is all over the place. Tess is cool. Tess has it going on. Tess is 100% down. If Tess was my guardian angel, we'd be fine. Everything would be fine. Even Andrew, the angel of death, he's more put together than Monica. And that's saying something.
I've only watched the show a few times, but I remember it being weird thinking that angels were arguing about how to deal with my situation, about the people's situations.
Yeah. One of my favorite episodes, this woman is suffering from schizophrenia and the angels appear to her to help her out. And I'm like, this is did you think right?
That's a bad idea.
No.
Let's appear to the schizophrenic.
And it's not the only time that happens. There's a few times where someone's mentally ill and they're trying to help them out. And I'm like, maybe we should leave it to the real therapist to get them into reality than
to put more angels in their head.
It's just add to their hallucinations. Anyways, that's a tangent.
Right.
If you will watch Touched by an Angel and you are religious, then good for you. But definitely don't go into it thinking it is the best advice. Some of the episodes are really well written, I will say that, but that's okay. Never mind. That's for me to discuss with Mitchell in a future
Yeah,
episode.
on the next Touched by an Angel episode.
Yeah. Today's episode is on the Kentucky meat shower. And it is exactly what it sounds like. That's why I'm wearing a hat today. What?
I said it sounds terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. It is terrible. But this is why I'm wearing the hat. If you watch my TikToks, I try to match my outfits to the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I'm wearing a hat. If you're listening on wherever you listen to podcasts, I'm wearing a hat. There we go. So I wore a hat because if I was in a meat shower, I'd probably want to wear a hat.
I get you.
Yeah. This all takes place. Oh, let me start with my sources. Sorry. Scientific American, Book of the Damned, BBC Science Focus, Wikipedia, and others. And Mitchell. Those are my sources. So this takes place in Olympia, which is an unincorporated community in Bath County, Kentucky, United States. If you don't know what an unincorporated place is, look it up, because Vegas is also an unincorporated place, or shall I say paradise. And like I said, I promised that was going to be an episode for a future time. It's just like a really boring fact about Las Vegas is that Las Vegas, as you know it, is an unincorporated place. Las Vegas, as you know it, is actually paradise. La, la, la. There we go. Okay. Said it. That's the whole episode. Now I don't need to do that episode in the future.
There you go. Yeah.
I love how I talk when I tell tourists about it. I can just see their eyes glaze over. And I'm like, to me, it's fascinating. To you, this is the most boring thing you've learned about Vegas today, is that, and confusing. And like, what do you mean Vegas isn't Vegas? Vegas isn't Vegas. And it's not even a city. It's an unincorporated place. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of these stories take place in unincorporated places. And I've said this many times, but maybe it's because weird things happen on the fringes of society. Who knows? But this is definitely a weird thing. So March 3rd, 1876, between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m., a farmer's wife, Mrs. Crouch, was making soap on her porch when she reported seeing pieces of meat fall from the sky. She said she was 40 steps from her house when the meat started to slap the ground. This is where you make sound effects, Pat. I can't hear any of that.
It's just me doing nothing. That's hilarious.
Probably didn't sound like clapping, but I don't know. Everyone knows what meat slapping the ground sounds like as it falls from the sky.
Right.
So she said she was 40 steps from her house when the meat started to slap the ground. The meat looked grisly, according to Mrs. Crouch. She and her husband believed the event signified a sign from God. I mean, yeah, right? I mean, I don't know what I would think. Probably not that necessarily, but
what year again was this?
1876.
1876.
So, yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
nowadays, meat falling from the sky nowadays is much more common. So, So Alan Crouch, her husband, said the meat, which looked like beef, fell all around her. The sky was perfectly clear at the time, and she said it fell in large snowflakes. Most of the pieces were approximately 2 by 2 inches at least, and one was 4 by 4 inches. The meat appeared to be beef, but according to the first report in Scientific American, two men who tasted it judged it to be lamb or deer.
Shut the hell up. Oh my God. Someone ate it?
I mean,
what?
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't
The
even know.
sky meat? That's
Um,
crazy.
all right. So according to the sanitarian Leopold Brandes, anyways, this guy who's probably important, said identified the substance as nostoc. Um, Now I showed you a picture of it before. Look up Google nostoc, everybody listening. You've probably seen this stuff before on the beach. Whenever you're at the beach and you see like this seaweed that looks like more gelatin than plant like, that's what nostoc most likely is. That's so I'm going to try to explain what it is. Um but honestly this explanation still didn't make full sense to me, but I'm not a science person. So
I was about to say, you're no nostetician.
I'm no, yeah, right. Um, so it is a type of cyanobacteria, cyano bacteria, cyanobacteria, whatever,
Cyanobacteria, whatever.
cyanobacteria. You know what that is. Nostoc is also known as star jelly, troll butter, spit of the moon, fallen star, witch's butter, um, and witch's jelly. It is
Oh,
the most common. It is the most common cyanobacteria found in various environments that may form colonies composed of filaments and monoliform cells in gelatinous sheath of polysaccharides. Anyways, it's a bunch of cells that collect together. I believe it's sometimes living cells, like of a creature or plant cells. It's just like a pile of cells that form a jelly. And it can fall from the sky. It can be on the, beach. It can form in the forest. It's just like jelly cells together. You know. So, and like things that are in the ocean often end up in the clouds because of what is that? How clouds are formed.
evaporation.
Evaporation, that's the word.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has happened where like fish have fallen from the sky, jellyfish,
Didn't frogs?
frogs, yeah. So, you know, stuff gets sucked up, up there sometimes.
It's
So
still crazy to me that evaporation can happen on that large of a scale. But
yeah, no, true, true. But like I said, I'm not a science person, so I can't explain it to you. I didn't even know what the word for evaporation was. Okay, let's be real. You know, Sarah, who's listening to this, her husband would probably know because he is the weatherman, and he controls the weather, so he probably
that's what
knows.
the weatherman does.
Yep. Um. So Brandes identified the Kentucky Nostoc as belonging to the species Nostoc cranium, which he described as flesh-colored. But really, it honestly looked like the color of seaweed. Um, so some seaweed kind of has a brownish color too as well. So it tastes it tastes like frog or spring chicken legs, he said. I'm not gonna ask how he knows that. I know how he knows that.
Mm.
And had ballooned and fallen upon the Crouch residence when it rained. Brandes gave the meat sample. Brandes gave the meat sample to the Newark Scientific Association for further analysis, leading to a letter from Dr. Alan McLean Hamilton appearing in the medical record and stating the meat had been identified as lung tissue from either a horse or a human infant. Oh, yeah, pause to let you that sink in.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he goes on to say the structure of the organ in these two cases being almost identical. So he couldn't tell the difference. This is also 1876. So,
Mhm.
the composition of the sample was backed up by further analysis, with 2 samples of meat being identified as lung tissue, 3 as muscle, and 2 as cartilage. So some people said it was nostoc. Some people are saying it's actual meat from an animal. So Dr. L.D. Castabine, who wrote in an 1876 edition of the Louisville Medical News, said that it was quite literally a coordinated bout of projectile vulture vomit. So yeah, let that sink in when you know that people ate this stuff
I
and
know,
fried it
right? Yeah,
from the sky.
that's all I'm thinking about. Every time there's a
Yeah,
different explanation, I'm like, oh, and everybody ate it.
yeah. So I don't know if that's what it is, because like I wasn't there in 1876, but I feel like that's like an oversimplified explanation. But uh what is that term? Something razor. I'll have to look it up, but it's it's where, the most simplest explanation is probably the explanation, you know?
Mhm.
So in this case, uh, that's probably the case, Occam's razor. Yeah, Occam's
Occam's razor.
razor. Probably the most simplest explanation is the explanation. So, okay, it's vulture vomit. So, having obtained a sample of his own, Castavin set fire to it and observed that it smelt distinctly of rancid mutton. This is him saying, the only plausible theory explanatory of this animalist shower appears to me to be that suggested by the old Ohio farmer, the disgorgement of some vultures that were sailing over the spot. From their immense height, the particles were scattered by the prevailing wind over the ground. The variety of tissue discovered, muscular, connective, fatty, structureless, etc., can be explained only by this theory. So 2 species of vulture are actually found in Kentucky, so this seems to be pretty self-explanatory for that to happen. I mean, who's to say what it was? Because I wasn't there back then. Now, this is not the only time that this has happened. In fact, that very year, on March 12th of 1876, a red rain described as appearing to be vegetable cells fell over London. So,
Right, that's right.
yeah. Now, strange things have fallen from the sky. And this is not the only time that weird jelly has fallen from the sky. In fact, it just happened very recently. And this is where Mitchell comes in, because Mitchell just sent me a TikTok about a guy from Oakville, Washington, talking about the blobs that fell from the sky. And it's so funny how he describes it. He's like, when you're flying in an airplane over the country, you see all these little cities, down below. And each one of those cities has like a story like this, where something strange has happened, and you'll never know because you probably won't visit those cities, But
Right.
if you ever find yourself in Oakville, Washington, ask them about the blobs. So on August 7th, 1994, in Oakville, Washington, which Oakville is a city in Gray Harbors County, Washington, in the United States, if you didn't know. So police officer David Lacey was driving his cruiser on patrol when he noticed it had began to rain. When Lacey turned his wipers on, he noticed the rain wasn't being swept aside. It seemed to smear as though someone had taken petroleum jelly and smudged it across the car. So he pulled over to the gas station. Lacey donned gloves and felt the substance. It was goopy and jelly-like. So he said the substance was very mushy, almost like if you had Jell-O in your hands. Lacey actually said this on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, which is my favorite show that I watch every day, along with Touched by an Angel and Dr. Quinn. So this program aired in 1996, if you want to look up the episode. Lacey goes on to say, you could pretty much squish it through your fingers. When we knew it wasn't something we would normally see because we never experienced before, we had some bells go off in our heads. This isn't right. This isn't normal. So Officer Lacey was perplexed, but not exactly concerned at this time. Not until he became seriously ill. So another resident reported that a translucent gelatinous substance had rained down in the night. She expressed concern that it may have caused her mother and herself to become ill, and speculated that it may have been the reason that her kitten had died. She said that her mother and herself subsequently developed flu-like symptoms. But this was not just her experience. Other people had very similar experiences as well. Resident Beverly Roberts told the Chronicle that she grew curious enough about the goo to take some home for a closer look. Don't touch the goo, guys. Just don't touch the goo. If you don't know what it is, don't touch it. So within a day, she said she was struck with weird symptoms, including vertigo, and she had to seek medical care. Others reported upper respiratory infections, inner ear infections at roughly the same time that the blobs appeared. Resident Sunny Barcliff told the Lewiston Tribune in 1994 that she had first noticed the blobs dotting a black asphalt roof on her family's 29-acre farm. A short time later, her mother, Dottie Hearn, sought treatment for dizziness and nausea. Sunny reported fatigue after touching it. Don't touch the blobs, guys. Just don't touch them.
Right, yeah.
So over the next 3 weeks, there were another 5 reports in the local area of these strange blobs, with several people claiming that they had fallen ill as a result of contact with them. A microbiologist at the Washington State Department of Health found that the blobs contained 2 species of bacteria, although there was no suggestion that the bacteria were harmful. When the Oakville blobs appeared again, samples were collected and tested by a local doctor who initially stated the substance contained human blood cells. Samples of goo were collected by the Washington State Department of Health. The Department of Health found 2 bacteria in it, Pseudomonas and fluorescens, Pseudomonas fluorescens and Entobacter colocae. Sorry, I don't speak bacteria. So whether the bacteria could cause illness in people was debated, though E. coli, what did I say? E. coli? E. coli, which is found in human nature, can be a pathogen. Before further studies were to be undertaken, the health department microbiologist Mike Dowell said that the samples disappeared from his lab. Dun, dun, dun. Several theories were given by the residents, including wondering whether the substance might have been waste from a commercial plane toilet. Now, this would explain, here we go, Occam's razor right here. This would explain both the white blood cells and the fact that it sickened and killed animals, since planes use antifreeze in their lavatory systems. One thought was that jellyfish had somehow been swept up, destroyed, and then scattered, either through some kind of natural event or something man-made. Another theory is that the Air Force, which was said to be performing bombing practice runs over the Pacific, had perhaps blown up a jellyfish in the water. So, or worse, that they were conducting biological weapons testing. While the Air Force confirmed bombing practice by the 354th Fighter Squadron, it had taken place 40 to 50 miles away. Most put the frequency of the rain events, so most put that this blob rain actually lasted over a 6 to 3 week period. Yeah, so it did last for a long time. No theory was ever proven to be correct, but for a time, the incident received coverage in several media outlets, the New York Times, like I said, Unsolved Mysteries, and Monsters and Mysteries in America, which I forgot about that show. It's a great show. So, yeah, that is the meat rain of Kentucky and the Oakville blobs of Washington. So, America's got some stuff falling from the sky. But yeah, no, like I said earlier, I was like looking up 10 weird things to fall from the sky. And there's like a whole lot of them, like I said, fish, frogs, blood rain or red rain is actually like one that occurs a lot. So, wear a hat, everyone.
and if it's weird, don't touch or eat it to find out what it is. I like how it was basically every meat except for pork.
Well, pork
because they said beef and they said lamb and they said another one, right?
Yeah.
But because I was like, is this so someone can be like, I mean, I'll believe it's pork when pigs fly, like, is that what someone's setting up a joke?
Oh man. All right. On that, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Thank you to Mitchell for suggesting about the Oakville blobs. I hope you all like, share, subscribe, tell your friends if you are enjoying this episode. You can check out my past episode on Hollywood's Haunted, the podcast, which I did many episodes on that in the past. If you're looking for more Hollywood scandals, nowadays we are in Sin City and much more strangeness to come. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Don't eat the blobs, wear a hat, invest in an umbrella, wear your sunscreen. That wasn't even something I brought up, but do it. It's good for you. Yeah, and stay spooky, everyone. Ooh.